We know what we want this offense to look like. We know the offense we've seen, but what is this offense supposed to look like?
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Ultimate GM. I am your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. We appreciate you making it your first listen today and every day. Today, we are looking at this offense once again because Dave Aranda was asked, is this really how it's supposed to look? And he had an intriguing answer. So I'm trying to figure out, what is it actually supposed to look like? Plus, Jeremy Roach talked to one of the leading college basketball analysts in America and had something to fire back at old Jeff Goodman. You're not going to want to miss that. Plus, some updates on Baylor's next game, not this weekend against Air Force. We're going to talk all about them the rest of this week, but also a development coming up in the next game against one of the most talked about teams in all of college football. All in that coming up, all that and more. There we go. Coming up on Locked On Baylor. Starting with this Jake Spavital offense. It's one that we all were excited about coming into this season. I know I certainly was. I was the one telling you 10 months ago now, hey, Spavital, that's the guy you ought to go out there and get. If you're looking for a guy who's had some head coaching experience, albeit not with a ton of wins, but head coaching experience, and a guy who's been around the block a few times, one that can put some excitement into your program again, Jake Spavital's the guy. And I stuck with that throughout the whole offseason, and I'm not ready to abandon that take after 2 games. I'm not. Am I questioning the quarterback a little bit? Yes. I'm also not ready to give up on him. So there are questions that should be asked after that performance that the Bears put out on Saturday against Utah. 12 points, 223 yards. It was just not a pretty one to behold throughout that game in Salt Lake against Utah. And if there are many more offensive games like that, then they're not going to win a lot of games in the Big 12. And Monday, we went over, was it more the Baylor offense? Was it the Utah defense? I think you can obviously take big parts of both. As I mentioned, Utah, very good defensively, but not one where you should be that far off offensively. And one of the things I mentioned in there is that there's clearly a slimming down of the playbook in that second half where they really did not get very creative. And the question became, could they get too creative with what they were getting out of quarterback and what they were getting in the run game? And that remains to be seen in terms of what we see in terms of creativity for the next few games. But in Dave Aranda's weekly press conference, someone asked, I believe it was Zach Smith, our guy Zach Smith from the Trib, asked, hey, is this the way it's supposed to look? You guys ran the ball 40 plus times. You only threw it 21 times. Like, is this what the Jake Spavital offense is supposed to look like? Here's what Dave Aranda had to say about it.
I thought that all the runs were to try to be able to get some efficient runs, and I thought like we were able to do that. And I thought that the O-line, the longer it went, the better that they got. And I think that we do have a physical group. I think that the more they play together and that the more that they work through things, I think the better they'll be. I think, we're looking forward to getting Bryson Washington back. I think he will help us in the running back room. I think he, during spring and fall, was really one of our top performers, and I think he'll add to the depth that we already have there. And so this offense starts with running the ball, and I think from there, with the splits and everything else, the overhangs have to be pulled in. We have the screen game. The safeties have to come down. We have the shot game. And so it starts with really getting the run game going.
Okay, so a little bit of nothing there. But what I took out of it was the term horses for courses. Okay, you're going to go with the guys that are going to get you the best matchups on that day. And so I was like, all right, we didn't get much there. I want to know, though, I thought that was a good question. Is it supposed to look like 21 pass attempts and 40 plus rushes? So I looked into Jake Spavital's catalog here and I thought, okay, Cam, let's find a situation where that's similar to this one that Baylor's in. Jake Spavital, offensive coordinator, mobile quarterback, team that's just looking to win games in any way possible. Okay, let's go back to last year when he was the OC at Cal. And I hate to break it to you guys, there weren't many games where the balance looked like that. In fact, there was only one game that he had 21 pass attempts or less in a game. And it was, weirdly enough, it was against Washington State where they scored 42 points and won. And they only attempted 21 passes in that game. So to me, that says, well, Washington State had a bad rush defense, which was true. Went back and crunched the numbers. They had a bad rush defense. They couldn't stop a nosebleed. So why would you pass it more than 21 times? They rushed it only 36 because they didn't need to run that many plays to put up 42 points to beat Washington State. It was a quick strike offense in that particular game. So let's look at the rest of them. And I was noticing, I looked at the rushing attempt numbers next because we know that this offense is supposed to have some smash mouth to it. There is supposed to be a good rushing attack in order to set up the big pass plays that they're looking for. I talked about that all summer long, that there is something to that. But when you look at the rushing attempts they had per game last year, there was only one of Cal's 7 losses that they had less than 40 rushing attempts. Only one. And by the way, Spavital was only there for 6 of the losses. So of the 6, there was only one that they had less than 40 rushing attempts. I butchered that. There was only one game that they won that they had less than 40 rushing attempts. That's what I was going for. Everything else, they were rushing a little bit less because they were behind. And so looking at that, okay, if you're looking to win in the Spavital system and these criteria that I just laid out to you that would fit Baylor and last year's Cal team, if you're trying to win, you're going to rush more than 40 times. But also, there was only one time all season that they rushed or passed 21 times or less. And that was that one win against Washington State. Baylor did that in a loss. So what that tells me, ultimately, to get through all this jargon, is that they run the ball a lot because they're establishing the run and they're ahead in these games. Okay, that allows for them to take shots down the field. Baylor was not in the lead at any point in this game on Saturday, and I don't know that they did establish the run incredibly well. They had a good quarter running it, but they were behind the whole game. And so that goes contradictory to all those numbers that he was running at Cal, where they were passing when they were behind in games. They were passing more in the games they lost versus the games that they won. They didn't have a lead at any point against Utah. So that to me says, we're not getting enough separation, or we're not seeing enough in the passes we are attempting to actually go out there and chuck it as many times as we need to when we're behind. In that game against Washington State last year, they threw it 21 times. They completed 14. They threw it 21 times in this game against Utah. They completed 9. So here's a scenario that in the Jake Spavital offense, you should be passing more than normal and almost as much as you run the ball. We didn't see that. That concerns me. That says, what is the playbook for this quarterback and these receivers and this offensive line? Because it's not the same one that Jake Spavital has been working with in the past that has got him to a lot of success. And it's not the same as last year when he turned an offense around in 1 year and made them a bowl team and took those big jumps in terms of, their rushing offense, especially going up, 80 yards a game in one season. We saw an environment that was conducive to more passing, and we saw less passing So that is what concerns me. What does this balanced offense look like? I don't know. We don't know yet. And I think that makes you question the quarterback position, but also the offensive line and the receivers. It's not all in one guy, but you do have to wonder that after looking at those numbers, looking at a case where Saturday was one that you should have been passing more and you were not. Whose fault is that? Who's got the trust issue there? I guess we'll find out these next couple games to see how often they're passing, especially if they fall behind. Guys, I want to take a minute to tell you about this new game that I have been all into. That's the Ultimate College Football Head Coach mobile game. I love it because in it, you get to step in the shoes of Dave Aranda and lead Baylor to glory, okay? You recruit players, hire coaching staff, oversee the training camps, handle school scholarships. You control every crucial detail of the program. It's in your hands. And what I really love is you get to be Dave Aranda and Jake Spavital because you're responsible for calling the offensive plays. Your strategy, it's not only going to determine the success of your football season, but it is going to shape the future and legacy of your program. No ads, completely free, 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, we do have a special offer for you guys. Use the code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store. Receive a free boost to your program. Download the game. Just visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up in the app stores. Today's episode of Locked On Baylor is also brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. You want to get out to the games this year, football, basketball, or maybe you're looking at concerts or theater. You're a little bit more cultured than I am when it comes to that. There's only one place to go, and that is Gametime. Okay, you get the panoramic seat views before you hit purchase. You get the all-in pricing that you can see on there. The price you see is the price you're going to pay. Lowest price guarantee, the best ticket coverage of any place in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, COLLEGE, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? No, seriously, what time? What time? Oh, it's game time. Shifting a little bit towards basketball because we got a great interview from Jeremy Roach. He was with the Field of 68 guys, which is Jeff Goodman, by the way. I almost always say Joe Goodman. My pal Joe Goodman of OSO. But it's not Joe Goodman. It's Jeff Goodman. Okay? That he was sitting down with, talking his transition from Duke to Baylor, what this Baylor team's going to look like. And it did remind me in the first couple questions, I thought this is interesting because I listened to their offseason grades from the Field of 68 a few weeks ago. They talked about Baylor. And there were some Baylor fans who were upset about it. They got a B+. Goodman gave them a B+. And the reason he didn't make them an A, which, by the way, B+ is not bad. It's all right. He didn't give them an A because he was concerned about the point guard play. I was like, that's interesting because in my mind, they have 2 point guards. They had a guy who started out his career as a stud point guard in Jeremy Roach, and you got the number 1 point guard recruit in America in Rob Wright. And so I'm like, that's interesting. And it didn't take long for Jeff to ask about that. I'll play the clip here, but he was like, look, I don't want to sound like a hater, but I was saying the issue is that they don't have a point guard here with any experience. And Jeremy Roach put that notion to bed rather quickly.
All right, so I'm going to be totally honest with you here. My biggest question, we did something on breaking down Baylor's offseason. I don't know if you saw it, but my biggest question was point guard play.
Mm-hmm. You got your big, you got your wings, but who's the point guard? Roach isn't really a point guard. He's really more of a 2.
Is it fair? Am I just forgetting Jeremy Roach is a point guard and thinking more of you as a 2? Is that my problem?
I'm going to let the whole world know right now. Like, I'm not a 2, I'm not a 3, I'm not a scoring guard, I'm a point guard. Like, it's cut
That's what you always were.
Yeah, cut all the two guard. No. That was just what I had to do. I do. Right now, I'm a point guard, and it's great to get back to what I do. So.
No. I'm a point guard. Okay, I run this. He said a lot of people forgot. But no, I am a point guard. Don't get it twisted, brother. I love that. I love that because it's kind of I was thinking maybe I'm too naive, and maybe I am. Maybe I'm looking at this with too much of those green and gold glasses, but I see a guy in Jeremy Roach who was a pretty darn good point guard early in his career at Duke. And last year, a lot more Jared McCain with the ball, and he became a pretty darn good combo guard, man. Became an all ACC combo guy, I thought. And it certainly showed in that game against Baylor. He had a really nice night. I think he had 18. And so I'm like, I think you're getting the best of both worlds here. I think you're getting a super versatile guard. And him saying, no, I'm the point guard. I like that maybe even more because I think it solidifies a rotation that I really like, in that Jeremy Roach is your starting point guard. Rob Wright is the understudy as one of the most talented, point guards out of the high school rankings. Again, number 1 ranked point guard in America. So he learns under Jeremy Roach. And I think there's going to be plenty of times where they're both on the floor, where Rob Wright is running some point and Jeremy Roach is looking like the combo guard, the 2 guard, the good 3-point shooter, the 43% 3-point shooter we saw his last year at Duke. You're getting the best out of both those guys, and they're going to be on the floor at the same time. I don't know how much Rob Wright will play off the ball when they're both on the floor, but I'm sure you'll see some of it. And you put that with a guy like VJ Edgecombe, who's super explosive off the ball, and you have got a great trio just from those 3. And that's not mentioning Jaden Nunn. That's not mentioning Langston Love. And those guys are going to be big parts of this team in the backcourt. So Jeremy Roach giving it back to Jeff Goodman a little bit, which I'm sure a lot of Baylor fans would like to do, is give it back to Jeff Goodman a little bit. He said, no, you got it wrong, man. I'm a point guard. And I love that, especially because I love the rotation of that and what that means. And I'm going to talk about Baylor's starting lineup here in the next few days and weeks here, because we are 8 weeks away from college basketball. In fact, I was on with Isaac Shade of Locked On College Basketball. That episode's out today on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Make that your second listen after making Locked On Baylor your first listen. But we talk a little bit about starting lineups, and I think without getting too much into it, I'm seeing as much of a small ball lineup as maybe Scott Drew has ever put out there. I think there is a world where Norchad Omier at 6'8", 6'9" is your center in a small ball lineup, and you're rolling out 4 other guards. I think you can do that in today's college basketball and in today's Big 12, the way you start to see that in the NBA, like truly positionless. We talk about positionless. That would be a positionless lineup. And having Jeremy Roach running the point is going to be a big part of Baylor's success this year. No doubt about it. But I'm excited to talk more about basketball in the coming weeks and months, because once it's on us, it's going to be that first week in November. We're going to have a big game midweek. I think that's when the Gonzaga game is going to be, probably in Vegas. That's like Wednesday, the 6th of November. So we'll have to have something on that. And then that Saturday, Baylor football's bye week, which, golly, what a blessing in disguise of that being the bye week, because we're going to have a second major basketball game. Big for me in content here at Locked On Baylor, because then that's when they play Arkansas that Saturday at the AAC. Cannot wait for that. So I'm saying that to say it'll jump on us quick. It's going to jump on us quick here. So September 11th, as you're listening to this, it might not seem like basketball is that close, but I'm telling you, hop, skip, and a jump, and we are right there. Bears, jump out to a 6-1 start in football, and then we're starting to talk about basketball all of a sudden. I think that's in our future. Maybe. One of those things that will come along the way, one of those games that Baylor will need to win in order to be 6-1 at that point, is the Colorado game. I might be getting out ahead of my skis a little bit, but there is some big developments in that one, and which is coming up in a week and a half. But today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. You guys have heard me talk about that a lot, right? FanDuel, you might know it as America's #1 sportsbook and a proud sponsor of Locked On Baylor. Well, we have a little something different for you, because right now, through September 22nd, which, as I mentioned before, is the 30th anniversary of Friends premiering. And if you didn't listen to that episode, trust me, look that up. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you're going to be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Once again, that is FanDuel.com. And if you didn't hear it the first couple times, it is America's #1 sportsbook. Back to football. I know some of you were sweating. Like, oh, man, thank God we're back to football talk. Baylor's got Air Force this weekend. We're going to start an Air Force breakdown tomorrow and what these Falcons bring to the table. It's not your slightly older brother's Air Force. I will say that refrain again before the end of this week. It's not as good a team as the Bears faced in the 2022 Armed Forces Bowl, the Ice Bowl that it was up at Amon Carter Stadium. That team was the #1 rushing team in the country. This is not that. Then again, we're waiting to see if Baylor is as good as that team that finished 6-6 in the regular season that faced Air Force in the Armed Forces Bowl. We're waiting to see if that is the case. But I feel weirdly kind of good about this game this weekend, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. I'll reveal why I feel good about it. But I'm also looking ahead a little bit. September 21st, first Big 12 game on the road at altitude, facing the Colorado Buffaloes in Boulder at Folsom Field. And it was announced this week that will be a night game. The networks, they love some Dion. They love them some Colorado Buffaloes. And 2 guys with the last name Sanders. They love having them on in the prime time. We saw it with, NBC? Was that right? Over the weekend. My man, Colt McCoy, he's off to a bit of a slow start, but everyone is when it comes to color commentary. They get blown out by Nebraska on national TV. So 2 weeks later, they will be on national TV again on Big Fox, 7 o'clock Central Time on Saturday the 21st. I love it. Bring it on. Because that, to me, that's a winnable game. That is a winnable game. If you saw them play against Nebraska or against North Dakota State, a good FCS team, you would agree with me. That's a winnable game. And boy, I hope it doesn't come to that, because I hope our quarterback gets his momentum back this weekend. But if ever a quarterback needs to face Colorado, it could be that next weekend, because you can carve them up. And I would love to see that happen on prime time on national television. And one thing that is unfortunate for the game at large, but a banged up secondary for Colorado. Shiloh Sanders, Dion's other son that you don't hear about as much because he's not the quarterback and he's not quite as good as Shedeur. You don't hear about him a lot, but he has been a starting safety the last 2 years. He is out for a couple of weeks, had an arm injury against Nebraska. Of course, Dion already says this kid's so fast at healing, putting a little pressure on him to get back. But it looks like he is not going to be in that game against Baylor. Now, I sang a similar refrain last week when Kenan Johnson was announced as out for Utah, the quarterback. And I was like, here's the time. Baylor's going to pounce all over this. And they really didn't. They didn't. They passed for 115 yards. Is that right? I think it was 115 yards. So they did not hop on that. But with the state of the rest of Colorado's defense, and you take a starter out, I think you like your chances there. Never like to see a kid get hurt. But that is a chance to open some things up in the secondary. It goes back to something that Dave Aranda said in the earlier soundbite that I played about the balanced offense. And he was talking about like matchups, and sometimes, you got to bring the safeties in to take that shot over the top. That should be the game to do it. To be fair to Colorado, I don't want to be too hard on them to just keep saying that they can't stop the pass, because to be quite fair, they can't stop the run either. So I don't want to sound like this is a one-dimensional Colorado defense. They can't do either of those things. So, boy, that's going to be a fun test for Baylor, but that is a little bit in the future. We got to get through Air Force first, because then that's going to be a really intriguing week to talk about Colorado and whether this defense can handle Shador and Travis Hunter. And, oh, man, everyone outside of that Travis Hunter guy on Colorado's defense is really struggling. So I can't wait for the buildup of that one. Anyway, let me know what you think about having that as a night game. Drop that down in the comments below. How you feel about this offense and what it is supposed to look like. What does balanced look like for you, the Baylor fan who wants more out of this offense? Drop that down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. Any comment helps. Tell me what your favorite NFL uniform is. Drop that down in the comments too. Ring that notification bell to get notified every time we're dropping an episode on YouTube. We also have them every day wherever you get your podcasts. We're the only place that's not straight from Baylor University that's doing a daily Baylor podcast, and we're super proud of that. So thank you guys so much for making it your first listen today and every day, and we will see you tomorrow on your favorite show, which I think could be Locked On Baylor.